Hi, I'm Rick DiClemente of Star Self Astrology. I'm here today to talk to you about Uranus and its 7-year cycles, 21-year cycles, which will help you understand why you have specific life stages at 21, 42, 21, 42, 63, and 84. These are major turning points in your life, and I'm here to explain to you why. Uranus is a planet that goes around the sun every 84 years, thus through the zodiac every 84 years. And its really critical stages are every 21 years, 1/4, halfway, 3/4, all the way. It doesn't matter what zodiac I use now, you all have Uranus somewhere in your chart. What I'm talking about is imagining that Uranus started here at birth, and we would use the zodiac as a tool to show us how these stages work. Stick with me, I think you'll find it fascinating how Uranus does work. A little bit about Uranus first. It is a massive planet that comes through you archetypally, and it rules revolution, and it rules upstarts, and it rules rebirths and renovation. It's kind of radical. It's very prevalent in the skies right now, which is why we're facing a lot of the Arab Spring, if you will, and other types of grassroots campaigns. But I'm going to keep this very simple for you. When you were born, Uranus was at a certain place. And we could put Uranus mythically on the first house. In astrology, there are 12 signs, there are 12 houses. For this purpose, we're going to put Uranus on the first house cusp. So it takes about 7 years through each sign, 7 years through each sign, 7 years, or 21 years per quadrant. It's pretty exact, and not only that, Uranus is the planet that when it hits you exactly, that's when the events will usually happen, oftentimes down to the minute. It is a planet that urges us from within to find ourselves, to be unique, to be innovative, to not go on the well-traveled path, to find and do our own thing. So that's why every 7 years you have Uranus going through a different sign. It's hard to notice if you're not used to it. But you see that at age 21, Uranus is now at a right angle to itself. And that's why at age 21, that's one of the main reasons that it's such a revolutionary age. In astrology, this becomes the fourth house. So Uranus has traveled from the first to the fourth. And if you know your basic astrology, the fourth house is the Cancer house. So Cancer being family and family habits and your traditions and your upbringing. This is why age 21 is so rebellious, and people coming just recently out of their teenage years, they see this as a time when they want to break free. Now, there are good ways to break free and there are bad ways. The good way is a gentle turning over of another leaf. The bad way is if you have quite a rebellious or destructive tendencies, then this will be a very harsh time with lots of stress. It all depends on how you handle this planet. But at age 21, it's very common that people want to move out if they haven't moved before. It's a myth in astrology that you grow up at age 18 or at age 21, because you don't grow up until you're really at 28. At 21, it helps you along the way because you do get free from your family. Now, at age 21, this is why we often go off to college or even be graduating from college, and it has a lot to do with finding our own independence. Yes, it's a revolutionary time. You are going out on your own, and you understand Uranus much better as we go around the circle and look back, because the key to Uranus, it's that part of you. It's not a planet out there doing something. It's an archetypal force that comes through you. It's the part of you that gets fed up. It's the part of you who wants to break free. It's the part that can't stand being under somebody's thumb. It wants to spread its own wings, is kind of carefree, even sometimes reckless. So like I say, the good way to do it is to break free, but the bad way to do it is to become reckless and just throw caution to the wind. Now what's really interesting is you hear all your life about midlife crisis. As a matter of fact, there are two, maybe even three. The main midlife crisis at age 42. Some people call the one at 63 a mild midlife crisis, and then there are others. The reason I said, by the way, the reason I said you grow up at 28 is because of Saturn. So if Saturn started here, goes all the way around and comes back, that's called your Saturn return. And when Saturn completes its cycle, that's oftentimes you have been around the world, you have grown up, you stop looking for your stuff and you want to settle down. Oftentimes Uranian periods line up exactly with Saturnian periods, and that can be kind of confusing. And we see around age 41, 42, 43, it's not always exact, it's very common for men to go out and buy a Harley Davidson, get with their friends, and they want to go on Route 66 across the country. You want to do a wild hairdo. You try to retrieve your long gone youth, because you kind of unconsciously sense that you're halfway through life, halfway to 84. So at age 42 is a very critical time when Uranus has gone halfway around opposite itself. Well, when Uranus is opposite Uranus around age 42, it takes upon a 7th house connotation. So just like Uranus was in the 4th house at age 21 in that regarded family, at 42, that 7th house, which is marriage and relationships, and among other things. And that's why a lot of times people use this energy wrongly, and they start screaming at their wife or husband, if it was only for you, if it wasn't for you, I would be free. Which is why I write a lot of newsletters and warning people that the proper way to use Uranus is to become free of blockages, mainly your own blockages, to free yourself. Uranus always asks us, how free are you? How free am I? And it's very natural for the ego, or even the collective ego, to blame it on him, to blame it on her. If you were just better, made more money, if you were just a better wife, if you were just a better husband. But a lot of times there are problems in the marriage and you need to address them, but most cases at age 42 you have to ask yourself, what have I been doing to liberate myself? Have I been myself, the real Rick? Have I been the real Rick in the world? And this is why oftentimes at age 42 people get very riled up, and you say, what got into you? And the answer is Uranus. What got into you? What's come over you? And people want to suddenly quit their job and start their own job on the internet, do radical things. Well, it's really not something radical. It's been pent up inside of them since they were 39, 38, 40, 41. And it's 42 hits and Uranus hits exactly, it's got to come out. And this is why you hear people say, I'm coming out of my skin. Well, you literally are, because that part of you that you've been suppressing, what non-astrologers don't know is when these things are going to peak. And astrologers know when they're going to peak. They know what the energy is like. They know what it means and how to well advise, usually. So at 42, you should be taking a time to free yourself in your relationship. That does not mean to run out and get divorced. It doesn't mean run out and get married. It means being able to see in my relationships, am I able to be myself? What habits have I brought forth? What selling of myself? What giving into the other partner, especially with women, giving into the male dominance? This is a time where you say to yourself, well, I'm going to be myself from now on. I'll be in this relationship, but I want some freedoms. I'm not just here to do X, Y, Z by paper, what it says on paper that you're married, or these are the expectations of you. So the beautiful way to use a Uranus, opposite Uranus at age 42, is to get yourself into therapy if you are having stress in the relationship, or you're having stress dealing with relationships, but to sit down and talk. And as this Uranus is approaching at age 38, 39, 40, you should be feeling this coming. We feel these things coming years ahead. And you tell your partner, look, we better have a talk because I'm not feeling very free. Is this really me and my stuff, my baggage? Is this us? So you could sit down and maybe get some counseling, or maybe do it yourself or through self-help books. And you start working out, where have I been blocking myself? Well, my dad used to block himself. My mother used to block himself. And 95% of the time, if you want to understand something, just look back to your mom and dad, and it's very likely you're repeating their patterns. So at age 42, it can be very stressful, and the worst thing you can do, as I wrote in my new book, I knew a man that dumped his family. They had like 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and he was convinced that having this family weight upon him, he was 42, at that time of his midlife crisis, he was convinced that he was just going to shuck it all and go to Las Vegas and get some shiny glasses and become a state trooper. And they called me in to try to talk him out of it, and I tried to talk sense into him, and of course he still went ahead and did it. I don't know to this day what happened. But you see, there's a man who uses the energy wrong. Another example, you've seen in movies or in TV shows, you've seen the wife come downstairs in the morning and got her robe on, having her coffee, and there's a note on the counter that says, honey, I'm gone. I'm sorry. Can't take it anymore. That's the wrong way to use it. That's abrupt, dangerous, destructive, very selfish, which is a downside, shadow side of Uranus. But what that man should have done, or that woman should have done, is years before he got to the breaking point, said, look, we need to talk. I'm not satisfied here. Is it me? Is it you? What can we do? But a lot of times in my career and with my clients, I see people so many times they wait too long. They come to me at the last minute, it's already broken, and they're really looking for me to say, yeah, well, it's kind of broken. I mean, that's much too late. It's very sad. So what that man could have done, instead of leaving that note at age 42, like I say, he could have, if he had been more in touch with himself, instead of projecting everything outward, he could have gone to his wife at 39 or 40, instead of both of them going out and having affairs, which is very common. So at 42, what you're trying to do is to have relationships, continue relationships, but keep the self intact at the same time. That's not always easy, and that means for both people. I let you do your thing, you let me do mine. So that's why 42 is so well known as the midlife crisis. Other things happen because the 7th house also represents your role in the public. So all of a sudden, you might feel, that's the key word with Uranus, is always all of a sudden. It seems that way anyway. Well, your role in the public might change, and it might change suddenly. If you've been in touch with yourself, it's likely to change very quickly, and for the good, because you don't see this in the books. This planet is a planet of opportunity. Jupiter gets credit for everything. Jupiter, good luck. It's so misunderstood. There's a whole nother side to Jupiter. Uranus is a marvelous planet of opportunity if you are willing to take some risk. If you are willing to let that inner self out. I call it the inner peacock. The peacock wants out, to come out on the lawn and spread its colorful leaves. So that's what I do in my office. I help people find that inner peacock. So, so many of us keep it pushed down because of critical parents. We keep it pushed down because mom or dad was an alcoholic. Whatever reason, we all want that peacock to come out and be itself. Ellen DeGeneres is a real good example of somebody using Uranian energy properly. Here is an Aquarian woman. Uranus is the ruler of her sun sign. And you can see the free spirit. Look at the free spirit in the marvelous Oprah Winfrey. These are people that have a strong sense of self, but it wasn't easy to come by. You have to get past your own blockages. So we continue And hopefully when you come out of 42, you have oftentimes divorced. Other times you have healed your problems. You have allowed yourself to be the individual that you really need to be. So the key to the midlife crisis, again, is being able to be yourself while with somebody, or while in your business or your career. No longer does it suffice to just have that role. What you want to do is be yourself, and Uranus is all about being that distinct, unique you that is you. So we go up to the one that's really misunderstood, which is age 63. 3/4 of the way around, Uranus is gone now in its 84-year cycle. This is another midlife crisis that is greatly muffled if the personality has become, I'm too old to change, I'm set in my ways. Very dangerous energies, because Uranus keeps on ticking. And what do we do most of the time? Lots of us, we medicate, or we drink alcohol, or we do drugs to push this force down. This is a universal force that is very powerful. It's like taking your fingers out of the 110 socket and they're stuck in the 220. You don't have any control. You have no control that it's stuck in the 220. None. Because that's where you're attached to the collective. But what you do have control of, putting a bigger bulb, using more energy, letting it bring you to life. But the planets are not very helpful if you want to just try to stop and hide and come to stasis. The planets don't like it, and that's symbolic that the lively soul part of you doesn't like it. These planets are just symbols. So at 63, you're now at the 10th house. The 10th house is the world, the Capricorn house, the world, success, the job, the career. And oftentimes people do retire at this time. Planetarily, they used to retire more at 58 because of Saturn. The second Saturn return is at 58. But oftentimes people are retiring around 63. But put it together, what does Uranus want to do? It wants to break free so the individual can breathe. So where you were breaking free at 21 of the family so that you can breathe, and where you were breaking free of the relationships so you could breathe, now you're going to be breaking free of your career so you can breathe. So what often happens is people will quit their job, risk their benefits or whatever, so they can do something either away from the world, like hunting and fishing, or whatever their love is or their hobby, or they break free of it because they want to do something else. Oftentimes in today's world, since Uranus definitely represents the internet, many people quit their job around 63 and start an internet business. So at 63, you're saying to yourself, remember, the 10th house is not just business, it's also your calling, your spiritual calling. What have I been doing to be free? Beside my family and my love and my kids and my relationships, what have I been doing to be a free person? And this is what I call the bucket list time. This is when you make a list of all the things that you want to do, and hopefully you can adjust and go do them. And just like with all Uranus transits, you can do them drastically and recklessly, or you can do them in a healthy way. Usually by this time the mind has settled and the emotions have settled and you're more mature to life's boundaries, and you'll go through the change easier. So we're seeing Uranus in its 4 major stages, and the least known and the hardest to understand is the 4th one at age 84, when Uranus has gone completely around the circle and returned. This is what happened to Pope John Paul II recently. It's just happened last September to David Hawkins, the famous author. What happens at 84 if you're still cognizant and you have your faculties? A lot of people in their late 70s start to lose their faculties. They're not as sharp. But for somebody who has got their faculties, 84 is when you're complete. And the question becomes inside. You feel these things. They're not told to you. I'm now done. I have done my job. David Hawkins, the wonderful author and psychiatrist, he wrote 8 books explaining how the mind works. Took him years and years, starting with Power versus Force. When he got to 84, he decided, I'm done and I'll write one more. Same thing happened with Carl Jung. Carl Jung at age 81, coming to his closure. He died at 86. At 81, Carl Jung finally said yes to the woman near him that wanted to do a biography. He was not self-indulgent. He was very selfless, very studious, unbelievably brilliant. At 81, he started to give into it, and through 81 through 85, he not only gave his interviews to her and wrote that marvelous book, Memories, Dreams, and Reflection. But he actually wrote some chapters himself. So at 84, you just feel done. Ram Dass himself is just past, he's right in this 84 stage right now. Doesn't mean he will die, but it means he will feel largely complete in his mission that he had here in this manifestation on Earth. So we see in every Uranian time, the Uranus impels us to break free, to do what Fred Rogers said. There's nobody like you. He may have seemed corny, but he wasn't corny. There's no one like you. You are unique. And that was a major message that he gave our children. And that's the message that Uranus gives. Now, right now, here I sit July 30th, 2013. Right now, Uranus is actually sitting in Aries, and Pluto is sitting here. And these two planets are at a right angle to each other. And they're going to continue for 2 more years in this right angle. And that's what's causing a lot of the stress. And it's recalling a lot of the things from when it was conjunct. In my earlier recordings on YouTube, there's one that talks about the Uranus-Pluto conjunction of 1965. Well, the Uranus and Pluto, you can review that episode to learn more, but Uranus is now square to Pluto, and this is why we are experiencing collectively this repetition of the 60s. What are we going to do with voting? What are we going to do with African American rights? What are we going to do with the new Hispanic issue? What are we going to do with Medicare, Medicaid, etc.? So Uranus is critical, and the main thing about Uranus in your chart is this. Uranus is in a constant battle with Saturn. The farther out you go, the more powerful the planet is. Uranus is the boss of Saturn. Saturn wants to congeal things, has ice ring around everything. For all these years and even now, it's the farthest planet that you could see. So the early astrologers did not know of planets beyond Saturn. Well, here comes Uranus to upset the apple cart in the 1700s, I believe. Saturn wants to bring things together, and it brings us to that desire to get stability and to get a safe haven and to collect things so they don't move and so we're safe. Well, that's wonderful, natural quality, but Uranus is the next planet out, and it wants to break things up. Not because it's radical. Yes, James Dean was an Aquarian, rebel without a cause. There's the exact use of Uranus in the wrong way. But to put this discussion to bed, Uranus needs to break the form so that newness can come. And then we build a new Saturnian stability into that. Then once it's stable, Uranus comes along again and cracks it and breaks it. Then we build stability. So that's the myth. The biggest reason that we suffer as humans is we get to a status and we don't want to move anymore. We have to allow life to come in. We're still growing. We're still, even past 84, we're still growing. But especially till 84, there's a unique you in you that wants to come out. And I hope by studying Uranus and by ascertaining what sub-cycle you are in, you'll be able to understand a little bit better of how to deal with it. Thank you.